The four phrases for those who may not know that are watching or listening are I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. So you're right. They're very approachable. They're very simple. They're very memorable. They're easy to say. They're easy to think. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Hello and welcome. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. This show has become so popular so quickly, you can now see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and probably anything you can name, anything you're using right now. To make it easy for you, I'm putting all of the shows in one place, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. People ask about coaching. I started my own coaching program 20 some years ago. It's trademarked. It's a system that works. It's been tested. But find out for yourself, no obligation, no charge. Go to miraclescoaching.com and check it out, miraclescoaching.com. My latest program is called mentaltimetravel.system.com. And with a name like that, you have to go check it out, mentaltimetravel.system.com. You know by now I'm an author. I've written 90-some books. My most recent book is called Unexpected Kindness. It is on Amazon, or go to unexpectedkindnessbook.com. And now, without further ado, I want to get to my guest here. Let me tell you who we have, because this is a historic moment. It's a good thing we're recording this, because you're going to want to watch it more than once, probably several times. My guest is Dame Doria Cordova. She's a global business developer for organizations that are in alignment with her purpose, which is to uplift humanity's consciousness through socially responsible business. She's a best-selling author. She's published the Money and You book series, which educates the masses with tools, techniques, and principles tens of millions of people use to reach financial and personal success. In addition, she is one of the contributors to the Think and Grow Rich for Women book and the author of the comprehensive systems manual called Money Making Systems. She is a humanitarian, a philanthropist. She supports numerous nonprofits. Her bio goes on and on. She's now leading this work and making this big impact through the Doria Cordova Foundation. She has a website called meetdoria.com. Now, after all of that, I want to tell you the real reason I have her here. As you know by now, if you've been watching me, I've written 3 books about Ho'oponopono. I've done a couple special shows with Zero Limits Living, entirely dedicated to explaining Ho'oponopono. The first book I wrote was called Zero Limits, which has taken the world by storm and is still inspiring people as they come across it. And it came out in 2005 or 6, somewhere in there. 10 years after that book, I wrote a book called At Zero, which continues that story and that legacy. And this is the quest for miracles through Ho'oponopono, the final secret to zero limits. And I had a special person write the foreword, the introduction to this book. And that is my guest. I have Doria. Her website might be meetdoria.com, but you can meet her right now. Doria, how are you?
Aloha, I'm so good. So happy to be with you.
You look radiant. You look beautiful. I want to focus on Ho'oponopono on this show. Do you mind?
Absolutely. My favorite, one of my favorite topics.
I know whenever you and I have gotten together and sat down, you've told me the most fascinating stories. You know, one of the things that's so unique about you, besides that incredible bio and all you've done in the world of money and all you're doing in the world of reshaping the planet and awakening it, but you're the only person I know who knew Morna, who is the person who brought what I call modern Ho'oponopono to the world. You're the only person I know. Did you know that?
Well, there's a lot of people out there, but they're gone. You know, they're gone.
Right.
And of course, her family, I'm sure, but definitely had the honor to be in around her.
Well, we need to start at the beginning for those who didn't read any of the books. They don't know who I am. They don't know who you are. They didn't see my shows on Ho'oponopono. So we need to start with defining what is Ho'oponopono. How do you describe it?
It's really a process, an internal process of self-forgiveness, but it can look at moments that you're forgiving others,
Mm.
and it's reconciliation, and really, and also aligning the inner family, which actually Morna taught, and
Yeah.
aligning, those aspects of ourselves. So it's a process of reconciliation, of forgiveness, and of making things right.
And when did you first come across Ho'oponopono?
Before I did the program, I actually had, this is dropping a big name. I went to see, I was a small group of going to meet with Fidel Castro in
Oh,
April
right.
1984. And I was doing all these prayers around him, and you have to be careful. And, the guy is not really liked by many. And I must have
Right.
picked up this little energy somewhere. And a week after I came back, I had this weird dream, and I literally almost fell from a second story in the beautiful cottage that actually Morna Simeona ended up living in. And I actually have, I forget which side, I think it's this side. I actually have my Ho'oponopono scar, I call it.
Huh?
And I fell down, and my friend who was staying with me had done the Ho'oponopono training. And I didn't know how serious it was. And then he just kept saying Ho'oponopono and doing the prayer. And I had seen him do it before, but not at the level that he was doing it with me, and insisted that I go to the emergency. Otherwise, I would have been disfigured for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And he just kept saying, and there were all these miracles that immediately started happening in the ER. And so then in November of 1984, Morna was going to be in town. So my friend Eric Smith said, you've got to do the training, because by then he had just taught me to say Ho'oponopono, and I release all these aga chords. I let go of whatever was around me. And then, of course, that's when I ended up. So it was how many months from April to November? And I was 3-day program, and it just changed my life.
This is amazing. You know why I remember the Castro story? Is because you told me in person that he gave you a cigar.
Too. Yes, yes. And I was turning him down. He was, he actually, it was such an interesting meeting. He kind of fell in love with us. He was only going to give us half an hour, as he used to world leaders. Margaret Thatcher only got half an hour, but
Wow.
he thought we were from another planet. So he kept extending. We spent 3 hours. And at one point he went and got his cigars. He was still smoking then.
Right.
And then I said, oh no, I don't know anybody who smokes. He goes, you don't know anybody who smokes? I said, I come from San Diego, California. Nobody smokes. He goes, Chilena, because he had already given me a nickname. He goes, Chilena, I am Fidel Castro. Do you know how much the cigars are worth? You could sell them.
That's
And
what I was thinking.
and I went, oh my God, I'm sorry. I mean, we were in such an intimate conversation. I totally forgot who I was talking to.
This
And
is amazing.
so
This is
I'm sorry I
amazing.
didn't know your joke, because one fell apart, and the other one I gave to a friend of mine that had a baby boy.
Oh, that's funny. But it's just a historic moment. So after this, the fellow that was teaching you Ho'oponopono, I think I heard you say all you were saying was the word
Yes,
Ho'oponopono. Is
yes,
that correct?
correct.
And
That is the lineage of teaching that I come from.
what's happening when you just say the word Ho'oponopono? Because that might be news to me. I know it as a name for a process.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing from you is that the actual word is magical. It's doing something.
It is. It's actually connecting you to the prayer, the process that I learned that it used to take 3 days. And I'm very curious on whether the family continue with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a beautiful process. So for 3 days, what you would do is you would make all these lists. And it started with the people that you were closest to. So you always, you would put your parents and and obviously your children and spouses and the people that you were the most connected with. And for 3 days, you did different levels of list. And I have to get a little bit, racy here, because the one when she said, and Dr. Huling was right next to her, they would say, okay, so now you're going to do a list of everyone that you have ever been intimate with. And because you picked up these things called ACA chords, AKA. And the ACA chords are these chords that get created. And she used to be able to see them because she was a full-on kahuna. And she used to say they were this giant, this big, the ones between people that you love deeply and that you hated or had conflict with. So what you were doing is cutting those cords. And so what was so crazy about it was, like, if you have ever been intimate with someone, then you have this thing called, I call it spiritual compounding, which not only do you pick up the cords from the people that you are with, but you picked up all the cords from anybody that they were even with.
Oh, wow.
And all the people that they were with, all their cords. So you can just imagine. And Morna would go into this conversation, and we would spend hours and hours. And that was when I made a list of the people that I had been, intimately with. And what happened was that there was an actress there, and I'll remember her name in a minute. And this beautiful Leslie Ann Warren.
Oh, yes, I remember her.
Yeah, she was gorgeous, and she was this beautiful human. We were in LA, right, in, I think, near Beverly Hills, and what happened was that then Morna would get into these conversations about actors and leaders and presidents, and her favorite actor was Tom Selleck.
I remember you said that in the foreword to my book.
Yes, and so she was constantly cleaning Tom Selleck, and that was her favorite. And I actually, believe it or not, I've been cleaning all these years for Tom Cruise. I have my own Tom. She had her own Tom. And
I think it's working. Tom Cruise is doing really well.
not only that, but his reputation is restored. He's not attacking people anymore. I'm taking credit for that, just so you know. But anyway, just to come back to Ho'oponopono. So what she taught us is, and this is something that I've experienced through, our Money and You programs and all our programs that we do, it's like there's almost like a vortex of energy. Like Joe Vitale has his own vortex. So when people do whatever book they pick up from you, whatever program they do, right now, they're stepping into your vortex and into my vortex. And what happens is that everything and anything that has ever been taught, occurred, and we have been participated in, people step into it. So I believe, my experience now, it's not even a belief, is that, and she did explain it that way, not quite the way I'm saying it, but the way that Morna would explain it, that when you say the word Ho'oponopono, it brought in all of the, not only the prayer, but the teaching of forgiveness or reconciliation and making it right. So for me, when I first started hearing from you, because Dr. Haleakala did not teach those 4 simple phrases at the time, but my sense is, and this is why I'm so sorry, he really liked me. He would have remembered me, but I'm so busy. I'm so sorry I didn't get to go, and I live in Hawaii too, besides San Diego. I should have gone to visit him and to ask him personally, because I believe that what he did, he simplified it, and he made it so simple, so that I love you, and please forgive me, thank you, all these beautiful phrases. I think they tap into Ho'oponopono, and I believe that through his own process, and maybe his family members will remember this, will know this, but what my sense is, my intuition, my knowing, divinity tells me that it was a way for the world to be able to just simply have an understanding of those words, but be able to tap into Ho'oponopono, because that is what is being called Ho'oponopono. So when people come to my prayer, to the process that I do for myself and have others keep me company, I feel that people, it takes them 1 second that have learned from you and from Dr. Haleakala about the 4 phrases. It goes, oh, that makes sense. And it gets integrated. I have seen it
Yeah.
now, for 15 years, that people just go, oh, yes. There was like no resistance.
Right.
There's no question. There's like, oh, yes, that's Ho'oponopono. So I think it's just different methodologies for the same result.
Yeah, and the 4 phrases for those who may not know that are watching or listening are I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. So you're right, they're very approachable, they're very simple, they're very memorable, they're easy to say, they're easy to think. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I'm so curious about that workshop you went to with Morna. I know when Dr. Hulen went to his first workshop with Morna, he thought she was crazy and he left. He
Right.
did it 3 times because he thought she was crazy. How
Yes.
did you feel about her when you were in that workshop?
At that time, my friend Eric had taught me so much about it, and
Yeah.
he did the prayer with me. When we went to the emergency that night, it was a miracle. I have had plastic surgeons and people look at my scar, and it keeps disappearing. And the face scars do not disappear, okay? And
Wow.
this man did he was an ER doctor. And then I literally said to him, I went to see Fidel Castro last week and I was attacked by a dark spirit. He did not hit me. Everybody thought he had beat me because he looked like somebody had beat me. And I kept saying, my friend Eric is the sweetest man. He did not hurt me. And this man was a Mormon. He was a Mormon doctor. And he said to me, and they gave me injections. And he said to me, do you mind if I pray while I do this work on you? Because he totally got it.
Wow.
He didn't even think I was crazy. I mean, how many people had seen Fidel Castro in 1984? We were the first group of Americans that went to see him, right? Wow. So he started praying these beautiful prayers, Mormon prayers, while he was sewing me up. And I was black and blue for about 4 months. I looked like I had been all the way in my neck. My face was like this for like 4 months. I would walk into rooms and people would gasp because it was so violent. And what happened for me, and that was the last time that I had an encounter with the dark side, and I don't even acknowledge it because I Ho'oponopono. All right. Wow. So what happened was that when we came back from the ER, I laid down. We didn't go back up to the. It was this beautiful cottage that had these raw iron steps that's where I hid my face. When I was awakened, somebody was stealing my soul in my dream, and I was reaching out for it. And I knew it was a spiritual, weird thing because somebody was stealing my soul and I was going to die. And I reached for it, and that's when I hit my head. And what happened was when we came back, he made the bed down below, and then he did the whole prayer for me. And then he kept doing it. He did it like 2 or 3 times a week. And so by the time I got to Morna, he had explained it quite a bit. And I was a very busy human being. And to take 3 days in a November for me was massive. So when I walked in, and she reminded me, when people go to fridayswithdoria.com, and under resources, you will see Ho'oponopono. And there I have the whole your forward plus, things from Wikipedia and all that. And you will see a painting of her, a drawing that was done by a beautiful woman that loved me, and she loved Ho'oponopono, and she drew it for me. And I want to send a picture to the family. And what happened was that she reminded me of my grandmother, because I'm from Chile. And Chileans, we are from the same stock. I'm 46%, what's the name? They call it something. And so I'm 46% Polynesian in many ways. So I come from the same stock as the Hawaiians.
I see.
Did my grandmother. She looked like my grandmother. So immediately, there was a, neuro-linguistic programming. What can I tell you? Immediately I felt connected to her, and she loved me. She was something else with me. She really had. And then of course, Dr. Huling, we just called him Haleakala in that program. Haleakala was in awe that we were so connected, but he could see that we kind of looked alike. And so when she started working, and then the biggest thing about that weekend was that, unbeknownst to many people, I used to keep it very quiet. I had 2 miscarriages when I was very young, 18 years old, 4 months after my boyfriend had been killed. And I lost his baby on his birthday on July 17th. On the 18th, I lost the baby. And on the 19th, July 19th, which was just last weekend, I had a new birthday because I re-chose life, because I was so devastated. And so all that pain went into my tummy. And then I had another miscarriage 3 years later. And that was a little bit of a technical medical malfunction that I don't like to talk about it too much, but I had a very bad experience. And so all that got anchored. So there was a section of the prayer that talks about miscarriages and abortions, which shocks people again. And what happened was that I literally could feel as she was going through that section, she was writing down all, then she moved into sexual abuse, talked about even bullying, emotional stress. It was an intense program.
Wow.
And she was like doing her Ho'oponopono. I mean, we are crying. We are like, now we are doing this, it's like a loving relationships training from Sandra Ray, which is very emotional. But she's totally, her and Haleakala are in total peace, just literally doing prayer as we're doing the releasing. And my life changed. I have to say something very private. My sex life changed. I mean, afterwards. I mean, it was like all of a sudden, all this trauma and all this shutdown, because, we have chakras. And I know that people that don't know me, I'm actually a CEO. I run a pretty big global organization. I'm a business. So not a lot of people know about this side of me, and quite a few do, but quite a few don't. So, we have these chakras, and so when one is shut down, you don't have the flow. So I was only 34 years old. I turned 35, I think, the following week. And what happened was that not only did my life change, but all of a sudden I had this is when peace began to sneak in. But trust me, I was not at the place I am today. This is 40 years ago, 39 years ago. And basically I began to get a semblance of peace, Joe.
Wow.
I began to have glimpses, which I had not had, I had not had. And it was, then I began to do Ho'oponoponos and prayers for sobriety, and I quit drinking. All of a sudden, just one thing led to another, and I quit drinking in 1988. Oh, and the biggest thing, a month after the prayer, the training, my mentors who had created the work, Marshall Thurber and Bobby DePorter. Bobby DePorter had already moved on to do Super Camp, but Marshall Thurber, who is total genius, of the chart genius, he saw what a great job I was doing with the program, and they thought that I was in the way, and they kind of retired me. And it was shocking because it was my work. It had been created for me. I had been doing it for 6 years. And this little voice just says, just trust the process. We used to have a saying, trust the dance. And it was like, and then I remember by then, Morna moved in, I'm trying to remember, about a month or 2 months later, into our property. And so I have direct access to her.
Yeah.
And she would just say, just trust, because it was doing a 3-day program with her and Dr. Haleakala.
Amazing. This is amazing.
It was because they're doing the work. They're doing the work right there with you. But you have to do your own work. We're doing the work, but they are creating the space. And that's what we do for people. We create the space for them to have self-forgiveness. And so I was very traumatized, but it was an incredible retirement.
Believing Before Seeing, a new book by Candace Barr, teaching you how to believe into existence. Available now for pre-order.
and I asked God for a sign, and believe it or not, one of the signs was for me to take a group to see Sai Baba. Do you know who Sai Baba is?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
So I took this transformational leader, Sandra Ray. Remember
Right.
Terry Cole Whitaker? Do you remember Terry
Oh,
Cole?
I love Terry Cole Whitaker. Yes.
I
Yes.
took her and a
Wow.
woman by the name of Loy Young, who's now an angel. And it was the most successful trip to see Sai Baba. We all flew business class, we had our hotels paid for, we all made tremendous amounts of money and got to see Sai Baba live. He came and saw all 77 of us privately. And
Wow.
it was now the miracles. But I am sad because the work that I thought was my life's work, long story short, early July 1985, I was in Greece, got this, what you call inspiration. It was not a thought. It was not a thought. I didn't know to call it an inspiration. I like the way you gave it a name. I just call it realization, but I love inspiration.
Yes.
I think that's a great word. And it was like, I had this inspiration to come back, take my work back. And then, of course, that's what I did. I flew back. And that's a whole other story because TWA had just been hijacked. So you could fly TWA at very little, low price, and you would feel like a queen with 15 people in this huge jet because nobody wanted to fly.
Right.
And that's it. I just, Ho'oponopono just began to change my life radically.
This is amazing. What great stories. And thanks for being so open. I didn't know some of the things you're sharing here. And I know you personally, and we've had conversations over dinner and so forth. A couple questions. Morna is credited with bringing what I'm calling modern Ho'oponopono in. There's the old way of doing Ho'oponopono, which was an outside group process, as I understand it. And then Morna said, you don't really need to do the group. It's all an inside kind of a job. Did you feel that she was what some people call enlightened, like a Sai Baba kind of a thing? Do you feel like she was awakened? And even if she was, how would you know? What was your sense? I mean, she was a grandmother to you, but what was your sense of her identity?
The physical universe. When she came to move into this property in La Jolla, the plants began to change. People thought we had a new gardener. All of a sudden, the plants were like the bush. What do you call it? The ones that are no longer were disappearing. The flowers were flowering. It was a sense that you got from her of peace. It wasn't so much that she was enlightened. She was just she was the essence of peace. And as humans, we can feel the essence of peace as we can feel the essence of evil. I've been in the presence of evil twice, and believe me, there's no doubt about it. So, but also, may I say, to strain this out a little bit?
Yes, please.
Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian tradition that has been done for thousands of years. It probably came from, the Polynesians. And so when families have conflict, they get together and they do what they call a Ho'oponopono, making things right. And it's like a family clearing. And they bring the kahunas that will do beginning prayers, they do clearing, they do all these beautiful rituals. And then they come to a place of peace. That's what has been explained to me by Hawaiians.
Okay.
Because I ran into them and they kept saying, do you understand what Ho'oponopono is? And I would say, well, what Morna taught me, they go, well, Morna, she had a lot of pushback. They were very upset with her because kahuna means keeper of the secrets. And that particular tradition was a secret. Only the Hawaiians did it, but she was given by the eye, by divinity. There was so much conflict in the 70s. And she explained this to me personally. I mean, I have the memory of an elephant. I remember things from the time I was 3 years old.
Wow.
I'm auditory. I used to be a court reporter. So I remember so much what she said. And basically, she was given that she had to bring out Ho'oponopono. And her vision, her dream was to have everyone have on their lips the word Ho'oponopono. So she was Christian. A lot of Hawaiians are Christians. So what she did, she created a beautiful prayer. And I I've had this for about 30 years. The first page is torn apart. And I have the little book in another room. And what I did was I typed up the prayer exactly the way she taught us. This is the short version. There's a short version and a long version. And she is a combination. So it's this beautiful prayer. And it's a talking to family, the inner family. The Aumakua, the divinity, it speaks to the Ohana, the conscious mind, the mother. And then they talk to the Unihi Pili, which is the subconscious, the unconscious. So it was aligning the inner family. And so she translated, I call it curated, because the word curated would be an exact word of, she took her experience, she took what was given to her, she took certain things from the Hawaiian tradition and with the Christian and with her own experience. And that was what we were being taught for 3 days. And she made it so clear, do not. People are going to want a copy of that book. And she says, do not do this. Because if you give it to them, all these aka chords are going to, because what happens with the Ho'oponopono, this is one section as you finish it. And I want to read it exactly how he says. And he says right here, he says, Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Son as one, I, and you say your name out loud, our family, relatives, and ancestors mentally detach ourselves from all involved. And she says, in this case, here, because we would have written up a case means a problem or problems, we cut all aka cords. We're set free and it is done. So what she taught us to cut these cords, which of course is totally in alignment with many of the Archangel Michael that cuts cords and many others. So then, like Buckminster Fuller, we're students of Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller says that we're all experiments, and our own experience takes the next level of teaching. So that's what I think that Dr. Haleakala went through his own knowing, his own experience, and he probably had the inspiration, let's make it very simple. It's kind of hard to explain, and not everyone is going to do this prayer. Let's do, I love you, the phrases. And so Morna was she was very expanded and beautiful. And not only that, this was only the basic. She had advanced programs, which she did with me and Marshall Thurber at times when we came back from trips. And she could see knives in the back. They were literally like, people that had been upset with us and angry. And she would do this thing called a carousel, which was boiling these eggs and doing this thing. And she would do that. She did one on me. She did one on Marshall one time. And it was like somebody had literally showered us with love and light. And I would feel completely different. So she was doing advanced work. And I know that Dr. Haleakala was there with her on that. And what my sense is that they left that for the people that could handle that level of energy and also leaving it with the family. That's my sense.
I love all of this. Thank you for explaining all of it to us. I have a couple key questions because I'm a little confused about one thing. Dr. Hulen, he and I wrote the Zero Limits book together. We did 3 seminars together. So I got to spend quite a bit of time with him. And I remember he always made a big deal out of not trying to change or influence or clean other people. He would say it was a violation of free will, that we would open up the door to bad karma coming to us. We would have hell to pay. Those are all quotes from him. So I always stood my ground and said, I can't do it for other people, but I can do it for me and my perceptions of other people. That's still in my ballpark. So when I hear that Morna was doing Ho'oponopono and cleaning on Tom Selleck, and you've been doing it on Tom Cruise, how do we align both of these, what sounds like a conflict? Sounds like Dr. Hulen saying, don't do it. And you and Morna going, we're going to do it on these people we love.
Actually, no, it's not at all. It's totally in alignment with what you write. Because what is happening to Tom Cruise is happening in my world.
Yes. Got
To
it.
use your language. So,
Mhm.
so I include when I do Ho'oponopono, and if you have a chance, I send you one that I did on top of Haleakala.
Yes. Yeah.
And you probably saw when I include all the Money and You graduates and all the business school graduates and all the people that are Fridays with Doria, I include you, I include everyone, I include everyone on social media. I include them so that I can cut my own aka cords with them. And to me, when I cut an aka cord with someone, I am freeing myself. And then there is a freedom that happens for them too. Because, okay, so I'm going to knock on wood. I'm still a little bit superstitious, okay? I come from Chile. I'm the only transformational leader with over 2,000 graduates doing this work for over 44 years. And I don't get into lawsuits. I don't sue anybody. Nobody sues me. Now, I do take a lot of physical steps. When there's a conflict or an upset with someone, I do reach out to them and I do clean up. And if something needs to be paid or whatever, I do. That has been key to me. And I have done that for my partners. Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he was my business partner for 9 years. He used to come running in sometimes and go, do a Ho'oponopono for me. Go, hey, you got to do your own, dude. I have this big real estate deal. I love Ho'oponopono. I go, you do your own. He goes, okay, let's do one.
That's right. You do your own.
Yes. But what would happen, I believe, is that I think that when you have a lot of people who are really upset with you, what happens is that there's aka cords that are being created with you. So when you cut them, you also are freeing them. So my sense is that, and particularly because of that story of that hospital, what my sense is that there is a part of us that allows, and that's why, what mine is to eradicate hunger and poverty around the world. And so when I get near people that can solve that problem, I'm very outspoken about it, but I'm very centered. I'm very, what Ho'oponopono has done for me is to give me this centeredness and this confidence and this clarity and people feel it, that yes, you can do something about it. So don't get me started on the laws that we have passed in places like Malaysia and other places that I have been in the background doing my little Ho'oponoponos and influencing the people that can do it. So there is the clearing of ourselves, and I think it releases others. And then there is the action, because you get given inspiration.
Yeah.
This is what needs to happen next. So yours may be to do all the things, you do it through media, through books. Mine is much more in the background.
This is so good, Doria. This is so really good. I'm so inspired and so excited by everything that you're saying. Now, my job is to think about all the people watching and listening to us. Many of them are all over the world. Some of them may be struggling. They've gone through a pandemic. They've gone through uncertainty about the future. We've had banks closed. We don't know what's happening next. What can they do? What aspect of Ho'oponopono, what prayer, the 4 phrases, a technique, something, what can they do to move in the direction of cleaning themselves right now? What would your advice be?
Okay, so definitely, I love your first book, Zero Limits. I love the second one too, but I think that the first one, and you do repeat some from the first one, but I think the Zero Limits really goes to a lot of details, and there is presentation that I think is really good. And I love some of the releasing prayers that you have in there.
Yes.
And I'm going to train, it takes 1 minute. Peace of the I am for those that are Christian. And by the way, I have friends from every religion that love Ho'oponoponos. I have all these Muslims that love Ho'oponopono. Peace of I. Peace be with you. All my peace. The peace that is I. The peace that is I am. The peace for always. Now and forever and evermore. My peace I give to you. My peace I leave with you. not the world's peace, but only my peace, the peace of I. Your unconscious has just learned that. He has perfect memory. So you can start when you're afraid, you're worried for your children, your home, and the airplane. Morna taught us put 300 million piece of I around an airplane to see a 300 million little tiny piece of I all over. That's what you taught us, right? In your car, piece of I, piece of I. I'm in agreement with your book that you do say, I love you. I love you. When just bring it right back. Now, I have to tell you, when I first read the book and the first chapter, right, you jump right into it. I went, holy, this is a courageous man. I was talking about you because it was like, why don't we just jump right into it? Because it is the human condition. All of our systems are designed for you not to take responsibility. I grew up in the legal court. I was an official court reporter. And a judge will say, you're responsible, but you're not. So everywhere we go, and you jump right into 100% responsibility. Listen, you want the greatest tip from me? Get it. You are. Once that, I got that in the S training when I was 26 years old. That changed.
Wow, right. My goodness, you have so much experience. And thank you for that. And thank you for saying the nice things about my books there. I really appreciate it. Now, you knew I was going to interview you, so I'm very curious to know, was there a question you were hoping I would ask you so you had an opportunity to talk about something? Or was there a question you were afraid I was going to ask? Here's your chance to tell me, and here's your chance to speak.
Just that I absolutely, when you take on Ho'oponopono, anyone, the 100% responsibility decision opens up the whole world. So when you were talking on your second book about how surprised you were that people were coming at you,
yes,
pretty much you were like an authoritative father or mother saying, take responsibility. Well, we are designed not to, because the world, you know, the Scientologists believe that only 1% of human population will get it, meaning get the level of responsibility and that they can work on themselves. So most people are asleep. They are at the effect. They're like the waves, the currents taken wherever. So when a human being decides, number one, to take 100% responsibility, and then to teach others, to inspire others, then you are going to have that blowback, because they're going to want to fight actually, like, what? How could I possibly be responsible? So at 27 years old, I took responsibility from Buckminster Fuller that hunger was my responsibility. So I was part of the Hunger Project, and unbeknownst to me, I thought I was just going to be moving into the hunger process. I actually moved into churning out social entrepreneurs. And my graduates have gone on to do some of the most magnificent work in hunger, in poverty, in human trafficking, and you name it. They have foundations and all that. And what I realized years and years later, after I had been doing it for like 10 years, I've been doing it for 44 years, working on myself for 47 years. And about 10 years into my work, I realized that how my life turned out, in a million years, I probably wouldn't have drawn it to be so beautiful.
Wow.
Because what I did was I went with the process and with the inspiration. And I also was blessed enough to run into Ho'oponopono, which became the wind beneath my wings, to be able to do the clearing, and it took me another decade to not take anything personally.
This is so good. This is so good. I have a final question for you here. And I know you have a website, which is a couple websites. You got meetdoria.com, and you've got, what is it, Fridays with Doria?
Fridays with Doria. And I do want them to go to another website.
Okay.
which is actually, of course, moneyandyou.com, because
Mhm.
they get a free book there for creating an economic engine around your life purpose. That's my thing. That's my business thing. And that economic engine is going to solve money problems for you.
Moneyandyou.com.
Moneyandyou.com. But the last one, which we got to have an interview on this one, is access, because that's my big thing in the last 10 years. And the access to cashbook.com. That's the one where people, once you get access to whatever it is, see, people who are resource poor, there's no poor people on the planet, only resource poor.
Hmm.
We have no access to resources. For those of us who have had the blessedness of have much more and creating wealth, we have a lot of access. So when people understand that, combined with Ho'oponopono, and I can't begin to tell you enough, I am as big a proponent, if not bigger, than you, Joe, about Ho'oponopono. I just do it in a very different way, but
Right.
there's nothing that has saved my life more than Ho'oponopono.
You and I are going to have several other talks on the show or in person. You are so phenomenal and you have such a rich experience and you have such wisdom from this experience. I want to sneak in this last question because I know that the studio wants me to get out here in a minute. The last question, though, is the show's called Zero Limits Living. And I like to ask, do we have any limits? Can Ho'oponopono free us from all the blocks? What can we actually do and achieve and become? Is it true that, anything is actually possible? Do we have any limits?
I don't think we do. And as long as we're focusing on the good, and I want to complete this with Buckminster Fuller's question, how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without any ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone? So when you focus on the greater good and adding value to humanity, that's very different than just focusing on certain goals like financial independence or just money. The ripple effects, the precession effects, which is a generalized principle, is different when you are focused for the higher good than just about cash. So when you are focused with a much greater purpose, then it becomes a zero limit life with the support of clearing, and Ho'oponopono, and I love you in your lips. That is an incredible combination. And I'm hoping that before I leave this world, that we would have handled hunger and poverty.
I love it. And I love you. I am so grateful. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for agreeing. I do want you back. I do want to see you in person. I can't thank you enough. So we want moneyandyou.com as one of the websites, meetdoria.com, fridayswithdoria.com, correct? All of these?
And access to cashbook.com.
I've been talking to Dame Doria Cordova, and this has been one of the most remarkable in-depth conversations, especially about pulling back the veil around Ho'oponopono. So please rewatch this, please practice this, and please go and look at all of her links. You've been watching Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. This show is now seen or heard on 1,000 platforms, but just go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com and you can sign up to be notified whenever there's a new show. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Go check out Miracles Coaching, no charge, no obligation, miraclescoaching.com. I want to thank Lux Media Studios, Candace Barr, Nick, who's running the cameras and engineering today. And I want to thank all of you for being here. You're the ones, as you awaken yourself, you're awakening the planet. I love you. And remember, expect miracles.